Super excited to hear from Cory. We're just going to wait here. I think he's now through. How's it going, Cory? Are you back with us? Can't hear you. It says maybe your computer audio. Here, let me see. So thank you everyone again for joining us. We're recording today's session. We're having some audio issues right now. No. And Cory and I were on before, we were talking, and then we're not too sure what happened. So please bear with us. No.
Does that help?
Yes. Yay.
Probably not as I had to switch my.
Incredible how it always just comes together.
Okay. All right. All right. Sorry, everybody, but here I am.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so sorry for that. We certainly want to just keep it within the time frame we have for today. So again, we'll be recording today's session. We want to certainly share the information through some of our channels and with friends, and certainly share it within your own networks. But we're super excited to be joined today with Cory Chadwick. Cory is a dad, he's a husband, and a mental fitness and performance coach, and the founder and CEO of the Mental Gym. So just like we have gyms, we have our bodies, and the Mental Gym is all about your mind. So we are certainly thrilled to be collaborating with Cory throughout 2023, and specifically offering 200 ACCESS clients and our alum the opportunity to participate in some sessions that we'll be discussing. So this certainly links back to our 2022 World of Difference campaign. And certainly that was all around supporting self-care and wellness for job seekers and within the workplace. So we're certainly thrilled to again be collaborating. And I'll pass it over to you, Cory, to just sort of walk us through what the Mental Gym is. And please have your questions ready. So we'll have time at the end to answer any questions. And yeah, we'll get started. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michelle. It's so great to be here. I've had the pleasure of working with a bunch of the teammates at ACCESS for a little while now, for months now, and it's been really a wonderful experience. Such a great group of people. And so I'm really excited to be here with you all today. Just like Michelle said, I am the founder and CEO of the Mental Gym. Just like we have gyms for our bodies, yes, the Mental Gym is for your mind. If you're joining us here today, or if you're watching this recording later, you're probably wondering, what is the Mental Gym and how does it work? And you might also be wondering, how do you know if this is for you? So we're going to answer all of those questions and more. Like Michelle said, if you've got some questions that you want to ask, we're going to open it up for some Q&A at the end. Hopefully that sounds good to everybody. Before we get started, I would just like to share three very simple rules that we have for every workout in the Mental Gym. And I know this isn't a regular Mental Gym workout, it's more of a bit of an info session for you, but I'd like to share the rules just the same. Number one, we treat each other with the utmost respect, always, 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 no matter what. Number two, we're always honest. And number three, there's no judgment. This is a place for growth, no judgment. Nobody wants to be judged, so there is no judgment here. I'm hoping everybody's good with that. And all right. Now, my guess is if you're here, you're familiar with the feeling that there's a version of yourself that you want to be. You may feel like you have more to offer, more to give, like there's another level that you have to get to. You want to be the best version of yourself, and you probably want to live your best life. You want to show up at your best. You want it for yourself. You want it for your family, for your friends. You want it for your team at work. You want it for anybody who counts on you. Maybe it's for the contribution that you can make or the impact that you can have on your community. Maybe it's on the world. But where do we learn to be our best and live our best lives? And I don't mean someone else's idea of best. I mean your own personal best. Like, how do you get from here to there? And if you're anything like I was, you realize that you don't really learn how to do that in school, do you? I mean, no, school taught us how to get by and be fine, and that's okay, but there's a big difference between fine and your best, right? Who's with me so far? Do me a favor, just type yes in the chat so I know that you're with me so far. Feeling that difference between like, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine, but like, I know there's a difference between here and my best. Awesome, a lot of yeses there, loving it, loving it. So since you're with me so far, now it's about, as people, as leaders, now it's about getting from here to there. Now, something that is essential for us showing up at our best and living our best lives is our mental health and well-being. Now, it has become a normalized conversation, a mainstream conversation. The last few years of COVID have really brought this front and center for all of us. Who's been paying more attention to their mental health and well-being recently, right? Maybe over the past few years. I mean, if we want to be happy, if we want to feel great, if we want to be engaged and show up and perform and lead at our best, our mental well-being needs to be a priority. I think that's become crystal clear for so many of us. So then it's no longer a question of if you're prioritizing it. Now it's how you're doing it, right? And this is not just a conversation for some people. This is for every single one of us. So think about well-being on a scale from 1 to 10. Well-being on a scale from 1 to 10. Now, every single person alive is somewhere on this scale. And yes, some people are over here at the lower end of the scale. And so far, that's really where this conversation on mental well-being is happening, at the low end of the scale. And so we look to resources like therapy and counseling and EAPs and things like that. And as important as that is, they're really only speaking to the needs of some people. And again, that's usually people kind of over here. But most people are around the middle. And included in this group, these are leaders and teams and people who want to show up at their best. They have a desire to show up at their best and lead at their best, but they can't because they're mentally strained and stressed and burning out instead. And so they say they're fine, they're getting by, not quite burnt out yet, but they're burning. Can anyone relate to that? I think a lot of us can. This is a very normal thing. And I believe that people over here deserve an approach, a solution that speaks to them and includes them because it's for them. Not reactive care, proactive well-being. Because it's about so much more than prevention. It's about moving from fine to good and good to great. Because over here, being mentally fit, and this is where mentally fit people live, this is where your best you happens. This is where your best life happens. In the mental gym, we call that living your 10. Now, let's look at this scale a little bit differently. Now, instead of it being a well-being scale, let's look at it at you and your life. This is your life on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 is you being your worst version of you, and 10 is you showing up at your best so you can live your best life. And it's not perfect, by the way. There is no perfect. It doesn't mean that every day is going to be a perfect day, but there is your best. So let me ask you, and feel free to just type this in the chat right now. On a scale from 1 to 10, where would you like to be? 1 to 10. 1 is you showing up at your worst. It's your worst version of you. 10 is you showing up at your best as the best version of you. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. I see an 8 and a 9 in there. Ooh, some 11s. I love that. I love the 11s. Of course, 10, right? That's what Yusuf's saying there. So a lot of 9s, 10s, 11s in there. And I notice we got a lot more of that than we do 6. Now, we're not really saying we'd rather live a 5 or a 6 than live our 10. Nobody here is my guess. No one's going to jump out of bed in the morning all excited and pumped up because I just can't wait to get out there and live my 6, right? Or even a 7. But just like on our well-being scale, this is where most people are. And that's how most people live. This isn't some people, this is most people. And that includes most people that we know, people that we work with, people who have influenced us, people who have shaped us. So here's the big question then. Why, if we want to live our 10s, why are most people living a 5 or a 6 instead? So I really started paying attention to this right after my mom passed away. That's actually when mental health and well-being first came on my radar. It was about 25 years ago. And unfortunately, my mom suffered from mental illness and we lost her to mental illness. And it was a hard time. It was a scary time, really. I was scared that it could be coming for me too, that it might be genetic. And I realized that I had a choice to make. I could cross my fingers and hope everything worked out. And somehow I would just be okay. I could do what most people do and wait until I was in trouble, really struggling, and then try to deal with it then. Just be reactive about it, deal with it reactively. Or I could take a different approach. I could be proactive with my mental well-being, and that just made a lot more sense to me. Now, at the time, I was a psychology major. I always liked knowing how things work so I could improve them and keep improving them and keep improving them. I also loved asking the question, why? Like, why this? Why do we think this way? Why do we live this way? I love asking the question, why? And I could never accept it when somebody answered that question with, I don't know, that's just the way we've always done it. Or that's the way it's always been. Anybody with me on that? Who's with me on that? That like, please don't tell me that's just the way we've always done it, or that's just the way it's always been, as if I should just accept that and be like, yeah, that's cool. That's a good enough answer. Right, so that answer always frustrated me. So I set out to discover and to integrate the essential tools, the skills, the habits, and the mindset for optimal mental well-being. I wanted to be mentally fit, right? I wanted to be over here. And it wasn't just about prevention. Like, yes, prevention was a big part of it for me, but it was more than that. I wanted to be happy and fulfilled. I wanted to feel connected to people. I wanted to be a great partner and a great parent. I wanted to show up and lead and perform at my best. I mean, I wanted to live my life. That's what we're talking about here. I wanted to live my life. I mean, that's why we're here together, right? It's why you're here. So one small adjustment at a time, one little improvement at a time, I began rewiring how I thought, how I made decisions, and how I behaved. And over time, all of these little adjustments, these tiny, consistent micro improvements, just tiny little improvements, they were adding up and adding up and adding up and adding up. There's a real compounding effect that happens here. And after seeing all these amazing changes in my own life, I started sharing it with other people as well. And the more people I got to work with, and the more they experienced these results in their own lives, and the more impact it had on their teams and at home with their families and in their communities, the more I was driven to find the best way to share it. And then one day I was right in the middle of a CrossFit class, and this light bulb goes off. Usually when we think about fitness, we think about physical fitness, right? We exercise our bodies to get physically fit, and we have a place to go to do that. But we also need a place to work on our mental fitness and get mentally fit together. Because again, being mentally fit, that's where your best you happens. And as we're getting mentally fit together, we're also going to grow and develop as better people and leaders. That personal and leadership development piece, that is a huge part of what we're going to work on here together in the mental gym. We're also going to connect with each other, connecting with a community of like-minded people, real human connection with real people. This is what the mental gym is all about. Because quite frankly, people deserve the opportunity to show up at their best and live their best lives. And not just once in a while, consistently. Because you don't come here to live a 6 or a 7, you come here to live your 10. But again, if we know we want to live our 10s and we don't want to live a 6, why do most people live closer to a 6 than to their 10? And why do people so often hit a ceiling of living their 7? So I needed to understand this. And so I started studying all these people in my life, mostly my parents' generation at the time. And these are people that I knew and people that I liked and people that I loved. We're talking good people, smart people. They had good careers, they made good livings, they had nice homes, all of that. Like they were checking the boxes in life. And I noticed something. They were checking the boxes, but I just didn't feel like they were that happy. And they seemed unfulfilled. And I was confused. This was confusing for me because by all accounts, by everything that I learned growing up in a middle-class neighborhood, they should all be so happy, right? I mean, checking the boxes equals happiness, doesn't it? That's what I thought. And look, I'm not saying they were miserable, though I suppose some of them might have been, and maybe just hit it well. We're very good at hiding how we really feel, right? Social media life, it's all we see is the best parts of everybody's lives. We don't actually see what's really happening in their life. But this wasn't about miserable though. It was like, why do I feel like on a scale from 1 to 10, most of them were at a 6, maybe a 7, like maybe they were 6 or 7 happy, but there wasn't anyone I knew who I could look at and just honestly say, yeah, you're living your 10. And so something wasn't adding up. I just didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until I was checking the same boxes myself in my own life, as good as everything was in my life, something was missing. I wanted more out of life. It's like you wake up one day and you say, huh, is this it? I just thought there'd be more to life than this. Anybody ever think or feel that way? Like life's good and you got a lot to be grateful for. You're definitely not complaining, but you still want more out of life? Can you let me know in the chat? Is that something that you relate to also? My life's good. I've got a lot to be grateful for. I got a lot of good things going, but like, I want more out of life. Yeah, yes, of course, yeah. Anybody ever feel guilty for thinking that way or for feeling that way? Like, who am I to want more? We tend to do that, right? Because especially if we've got a lot of good things going for us. So something wasn't quite adding up. Something was missing. And eventually I learned why. See, we're pursuing this idea of success, right? And when you think about success, especially society's typical idea of success, what comes to mind to you? Feel free to just enter it in the chat. What comes to mind to you? How do people typically define or measure success? Based on what? What kind of things come to mind here? Wealth, money, happiness, be happy with myself, nice. Freedom, home, money, and fulfillment. I love how much we're seeing money and fulfillment here because usually, yeah, salary, possessions, famous, having more money, house, salary, wealth, like these are the things that we typically learn, right? We learn about money, we learn about status, we learn about having a job title, we learn about fame and beauty and things like that. So we're pursuing an idea of success. And it's about the same thing that everyone else is doing too, right? And we want to be successful because, well, we've been told that we should want to be successful, right? I mean, that probably started with your first report card in school, maybe even earlier than that. And then what we do is we learn to think like other people think. We learn to think the same way as everyone else. So let me share a little story with you about how that works. It's actually a story about lawns, about grass. You know how houses have front lawns? Did you ever wonder why? I mean, probably not. Why would you? Of all the things that we have on our minds every day, the origins of front lawns probably doesn't make it to the top of your list, right? It's something you probably never think about or even have thought about. And instead, like with a lot of things, we just accept it. We accept that houses have lawns, but if you really think about it, why? And what's the point? It takes a lot of time, a lot of work to maintain a lawn. You have to water it and mow it and trim the edges, and for what? The author Yuval Noah Harari, he talks about this in his book Homo Deus. He's the same person who wrote the book Sapiens, if you've ever read Sapiens. Really good book, I recommend it. So, okay, let's go back hundreds and hundreds of years. Nobody had lawnmowers, nobody had sprinklers, nobody had hoses. The very idea of having a lawn just made no sense because most people simply couldn't afford to waste a perfectly good piece of land. They needed that land to farm. They couldn't spare the extra water, they couldn't spare the time or the human resources that it takes to maintain a lawn. They couldn't waste the precious land that they needed for growing crops. I mean, yes, there was still grass in the world, but nobody had a front lawn, because to have a front lawn meant you had the extra resources and you could afford to waste a perfectly good piece of grass in your yard. So then along comes King Francois. King Francois was wealthy, he was famous, he had power. And as a show of all his wealth and fame and power, he set up a big patch of lawn at his palace or his chateau. And this is him saying, hey, look what I can do. I can afford to waste this land. I can have this big patch of grass just to look good and just to impress other people. And so that's what he did. And then the dukes start paying attention too. They also want to show that they've got money to burn. So now they also wanted lawns. And then having a lawn became a status symbol. It became a symbol of wealth and power. Anyone who could afford to have a lawn did, just to look good and impress other people. The nicer and bigger your lawn, the more wealthy and powerful you appeared to be. And now years go by. Let's fast forward a bunch of years. Now we're getting into the Industrial Revolution, and the middle class begins to emerge, which means more and more people had disposable income and started having lawns as well. And with lawnmowers and hoses and sprinklers, having a lawn just became more and more normal. And now, yeah, lawns are normal, lawns are everywhere, but not because it makes so much sense to have a lawn, and not because we're better off having lawns than not having lawns. It's not really for any reason other than some French king wanted to show off his wealth, and other wealthy people wanted to copy him. And see, we just assume that things are the way they are for a good reason. We assume that everything is well thought out and that it's intentional. We assume it's by design. We assume it's the best way to do it, when really, so often, it's almost random. So often, it's just a fluke thing. It starts because somebody believes something, and then somebody else believes that same thing, and then somebody else, and eventually, a lot of people believe that same thing, which makes it easy for all of us to believe that same thing too. A generation or two go by, and this is just normal life. It's normal. This is the way things are. And you don't question why. You don't really question where it came from. You just believe it too, because as far as you know, that's the way it's always been. And so we learn to think like everyone else, which is really thinking the same way we always have. It's not the best way, but it doesn't need to be. It just has to work well enough that people keep doing it. It just has to work well enough for us to keep thinking the same way we've always thought, and making our choices and decisions the same way we've always made them, and behaving the same way we've always behaved. So why is this so important? Why is this so important for us? Well, this is important because everything starts with how we think. Everything starts with how we think, because how we think is going to dictate how we make our choices or our decisions. And our choices and decisions are going to decide how we act or how we behave or how we show up. And how we act and behave and show up, well, that's going to determine our results in life, whatever they are. Results, our outcomes, our reality, our life. So if we think like everyone else, and we make our choices and decisions like everyone else, and we act and behave and show up like everyone else, what kind of results would we expect in life? What kind of results would we expect in life? Average? Same results like everyone else? Is that what we want? Do we want to be like everyone else? Or is that something that we don't really think enough about? And maybe we should, because being like everyone else, well, you just said it, it kind of sounds like being average, right? Maybe like mediocrity. It's like a recipe for mediocrity, but it's mediocrity by default. And maybe that works for living a 6, even a 7, but does that sound like living your 10? So you can think like everyone else and live a 6. But if you're going to live your 10, you're going to want to learn to think and make decisions and behave like a 10 version of you would. Upgrade how you think differently, and live your 10. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to challenge you to think and to think differently. And together we're going to explore some new perspectives. And I'm going to make you think, but I'm not going to tell you how to think. I'm not here to tell you who to be. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you some choices and some options. And your job is to choose what makes the most sense for you. And as you choose, you get to choose who you want to be and how you want to show up in life. And we do this a little bit at a time by making small changes, small manageable changes, and letting those small changes, those often micro changes, letting those changes add up and add up and add up and add up. Building those essential tools, those skills, those habits, that mindset for being mentally fit, for being a better person, for being a better leader, for showing up at your best, for living your 10. And we're going to do it together with support, with accountability, and with community. So we're going to work out together for 1 hour, once a week, live over Zoom. So our workout program here together, we're talking 12 weeks. We're going to start on July 11th. And each week you're going to have your choice of Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern time or Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern time. So that's every Tuesday at 4 or Wednesday at 12. And by the way, you might have been given some info prior to today that says we're going to meet every other week instead of every week. Scrap that. Forget that. All right. Just forget about that. It's going to be every week with the exception of August 15th and 16th. We're not going to have workouts that week. Then we'll just continue the following week, 22nd and 23rd. So 1 hour once a week, and consistency is so important to our process and so important to your growth. If you think about this like physical exercise, we all know what happens if you go for a run once and that's it, right? Or if you lift weights a few times, but then you stop, we don't really get what we want out of it. Well, that's true for our bodies and it's true for our minds. So let's be consistent with this one. Now, between Tuesdays and Thursdays, I encourage you to choose one that you can stick with. All right, if it's every Tuesday, great. If it's every Wednesday, great. And if you need to switch to accommodate your schedule, that's no problem. You can always come on the other day. So if you're used to coming Tuesdays, but you can't make it Tuesday one week and you want to come Wednesday instead, no problem. Or if you usually come Wednesdays and you want to come Tuesday, again, no problem. The most important thing is that you just make it to one of those, Tuesday or Wednesday, every week. All you got to do is show up with your camera on, if possible, come with an open mind and a good attitude, and you're going to do great. And then also between each of our workouts, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. We call it self-work in the mental gym. And these are exercises that you can do on your own to take what we work on together in our workouts and then integrate it into your real life. Again, small, manageable changes, tiny adjustments, micro improvements that add up and add up and add up. And all of our workouts connect together, which is really great. So not only does this self-work help you build on our last workout, but it also sets you up for our next one. Now, I will say this, space is limited here. So please only join us if you can make a commitment to yourself. 12 workouts, you make a commitment to yourself. You show up, you're present, you put in the effort, and you are consistent. And if you can't commit to that, or if it maybe sounds good, but you're not prepared to commit, please don't take a spot that could be going to somebody else instead. Now, just in case you're wondering, is the mental gym for me? If you're already thinking, this is me, this sounds great, I can't wait to get started, then awesome. You are going to love the mental gym, and I cannot wait to get started with you. And if you're thinking, nah, this isn't for me, also, no problem. Don't sweat it. We always say the mental gym is for everybody, but it's not for everybody. Now, if you're thinking, this sounds good, but I'm still not sure, then I'll say this from years and years of experience. I'll say this. If you think the gym is for you, it's absolutely for you. And if you think it might be for you, it's absolutely for you too. So we're going to go on an amazing journey together. It's a journey of being mentally fit, of thinking differently, of showing up at our best, of connecting with like-minded people and living our tens. And if that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, well, then I invite you to sign up and let's get started. I would love to open it up to some questions now. Any questions that you have? Yes, it will be the same link for both Tuesday and Thursday groups. We're going to make it easy on you. One Zoom link. Juan, I love it. Andrea, I think I already answered your question. How long is the process? 12 weeks. We're going to start July 11th. We're going to go 12 weeks. There is 1 week off in between, so it's going to be 13 weeks from start to finish. Michelle, you want to answer that question? How do we register?
Absolutely. So we are going to be sending out one registration link following today's session. So just check your email within like half an hour after today's session. And certainly just register through those steps. It's quite straightforward. And then you'll be sent the link, the Zoom link. And as Cory mentioned, we'll have a session on Tuesday, July 11th, as well as the Wednesday, July 12th. It'll be the same link. So, it's more about showing up and sort of, working around your schedule, but showing up each week. So please feel free to drop into either of those sessions. And then we are proud to be supporting 200 clients through this initiative. So we're really excited about people participating. We have many staff at ACCESS who are already, sort of into their journey with Cory in the mental gym. And, I've certainly heard about the successes and just how it sort of, it changes people's mindset, which is incredible. So thank you.
Awesome. I see here the question, how long is each session? Yes, I mentioned that it's 1 hour. Each session is 1 hour once a week. Sometimes we do stay on a little bit extra if people have questions, want a little bit more understanding about something, or want to dive a little bit deeper. But yeah, just the commitment there is 1 hour, 1 hour once a week. Somebody asked about an exercise in there, an exercise in the mental gym. So these are not like short little exercises that we do. It's actually an hour-long exercise. So it's a bit of a challenge to just share a quick snippet of an exercise here with you. But an example of what we might do is, so I shared that story of lawns, right? And how we just kind of think the same way that we always have. Something that we would typically do after that story is discuss something like, what's something else that you can think of that we do the same way we've always done it, just because that's the way it's always been done, right? So we just kind of keep doing things the same way we've always done them, kind of on autopilot, almost by default, just because we're used to doing it. So here's an example that I've heard a bunch of times. People talk about traditional ideas of marriage or traditional ideas of education. How about eating eggs for breakfast, right? That's something that we just don't even think about until all those eggs for dinner commercials came along and said, hey, why don't you have eggs for dinner? You're weird for thinking it's weird, right? And so what we're really doing here is we're challenging ourselves to think differently, and to build those tools, those skills, those habits, and those mindset to do it. So the example of the exercise is, you'll be given a prompt, you'll be given a question to think about and to discuss. So question here, will it be interactive? Yeah, very much so. I know that the way that we're doing this right now is a little bit different, but our workouts, we're all going to be live over Zoom together, camera on, we're in it. We're going to be discussing things with each other. It's very interactive. What did I miss here, Michelle? Anything I miss?
Yeah, I think we're good.
And I will say this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it was the first time sort of hearing it, because it's true, right? It's a new concept, but no, it's great.
Yeah, look, I promise you haven't worked out like this before. You haven't done anything like this before. This is exciting. You might have experience in personal development if that's something that you've done, if you've ever worked with a coach, if you've ever done like a self-directed course or a video course, maybe you've worked with a therapist or something. There's a lot of ways that we've worked on ourselves before. But I promise you've never done anything like this, and I hope you come check it out. There was another question in here. Don't remember, but one thing I did want to mention about the interactivity about this. So we really are in this together, but you can participate as much or as little as you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There are some workouts where people will be more engaged and offering more to the conversation. And some weeks, well, that same person might be contributing less to it. And there's no right or wrong. You just find what works for you, and you're going to do great. Yeah, so there's a great point. This is, and I mentioned this before, the entire way that we think about mental health and well-being and wellness is, what do we do once we're in trouble? What do we do once we're burnt out, once we're depressed, once we're really battling anxiety, and we just can't function the way we want to? And so we wait until we're in a position of being kind of dysfunctional, and then we're just trying to get back to being functional. And if you think about that like physical exercise, imagine all you could do for physical exercise. There were no gyms, there were no workout programs, or nothing like that. All you could do was go to physiotherapy once you were injured. Now, that doesn't make sense to me. Is it important to have that for people who are injured? Yes, absolutely, it's important. But is that the only way we should be offering people an opportunity to exercise? No, absolutely not. And so we want to think about mental health the same way we think about physical health, in that, yes, you can be sick, but you can also be really healthy. You can be fit, and living that fit, healthy life is a massive advantage. It's a massive advantage at work. It's a massive advantage for just being a happier, more fulfilled person. It makes you, and I'm speaking from my experience, but also the experience of all the amazing people that we've gotten to work with. I'm a way better parent. I am a way better husband because of this work. I am a way better leader. I am more focused. I am more calm. I am more in control. We regularly see people's stress and anxiety levels drop. We see people who are, again, not burnt out, but like, again, it's very normal for us to feel like we're burning out. We got a lot on our plates. Life is busy. We got work, we got kids, we got families, we got friends, we got all of these things in life that keep us going and keep us busy. And it's very normal to feel like we're stretched or like we're burning out a little bit. And we want to really reduce that feeling as well, of feeling like you're burning out. So we're not going to completely eliminate stress from your life and completely eliminate any of that, but we're going to minimize that a lot so you can feel more calm, more present, more happy, more productive, more focused, more engaged, and perform at your best. Yeah, and again, it's a choice, right? It's always a choice. That's a great question. What happens after the 12 sessions? So what we're set up for here, and this is something that we'll be discussing with ACCESS, is we're set up right here for the 12 sessions. But mental gym programming goes on and on and on. We've got over 150 workouts in our library. Together, we're going to do 12 of those. But there are so many more. So if you're liking what's going on there, let's continue the conversation, and let's see about keep going with it. Yeah, because it's a practice, it's a lifestyle, right? We want this to be a regular part of our lives. 1 hour once a week to show up for ourselves, to work on ourselves, to be better versions of ourselves, to check in with ourselves and check in with each other. Just like the gym. You said it, just like the gym, just like that. Except go to a physical gym, maybe you got to go 3-4 times a week. Mental gym, 1 hour once a week. That's it. Physical gym, instruction included or not? Yeah, so for a physical gym, I mean, you can go and work out by yourself, which I would say is kind of the equivalent to people reading books, maybe, or listening to podcasts or things like that. For example, people ask me about book recommendations all the time. What's a good book to read? What's a good book to read? Like, I got some great books behind me here. I got lots of great books that I've read in my life. Here's the problem with books. I'm not saying books are bad. Books are great, but here's the problem with books. They're just information. So you can have all the information in the world that you want, but if you are not learning how to integrate that information into your life and make it a part of your life, it's just information. And we don't have a lack of information. Right? Like if you wanted to look up how to eat better or how to sleep better or how to do these things or how to perform better, well, you can look these things up. We have Google. There's Information is not our problem. If information was all we needed, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs. But we need more than information. We need understanding, we need support, we need guidance, we need community, we need accountability, because we need to integrate. So this, when I mentioned that this came to me in a CrossFit class, this idea, the reason that I loved CrossFit was because of that community atmosphere, because you have your trainer who's there, who's leading the session, who's taking you through a workout. You've got your workout buddies, these people that you're in there working out with, who are there to support you and push you to show up at your best, to keep you accountable. And so you show up for yourselves and you show up for each other. And the mental gym is the exact same way. We show up for ourselves and we show up for each other. And when we do that, we grow, and we grow fast. Any other questions there? These are great questions. I'm loving these questions. Great questions. That might be it.
Yeah.
Awesome. If you have any more questions, I mean, anybody can just reach out. If something comes to you, reach out and we'll get back to you.
So I'm just going to throw my email into the chat. So we will be emailing again, just to confirm next steps. Expect an email from me, and it'll have the registration link as well as just the dates and times again in there. And we'll indicate the registration requirements. So great question about extending it to family and friends. Let me just confirm that, because right now the current initiative is really to support 200 ACCESS clients and alum. And we're super excited about just like the momentum and everything. So let's see, let me get back to you. Stay tuned for that email. And again, it'll all be clearly sort of outlined within the email. Yeah. Thank you so much, Cory. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. I know a lot of colleagues have met you and are going through the program and have nothing but lovely things to say. So thank you so much for your time. We're really looking forward to this collaboration, and certainly reach out if you have any follow-up questions.
Sounds awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm looking forward to working out together in the gym.
There we go. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Bye.